I'm dancing around some words here because, you don't want to say bad things about football because it is fun, man. And when I was in the show, I had some of the most fun I'd had in a while, just directing and making it happen. But man, it is hard to do everything that leads up to that game, especially when you are one of the only people. And geez, and then when things go wrong, it is so easy to blame yourself. Welcome into this week's Sports Prod Pod. I'm your host, Nick Cast, joined by Dennis Trapani, and he's back, Alex Souza. Alex,
I'm
welcome
back.
back.
I'm back on a working computer. Who
Hey,
would have
let's
thunk?
go. Well, we promised you before, and now we deliver. This week's topic will be football. We know it, we love it, we dread it. I don't think any of that's false. And we've all done some football, either in the past or this year, and I think it's time to ruminate on what has been and what will be. So, fellas, what do we think about football?
Go ahead, Dennis.
Don't all speak at once,
I
guys.
know that's a loaded question. That can be a loaded question. Like, I
Um, I will say this: I adore college football. I adore college football with every fiber of my being. Um, but obviously, it is very exhausting.
yeah, it is absolutely one of the most resource heavy, resource draining endeavors that you will do year in and year out, but it is something that is necessary. It's the straw that stirs the drink, and it is something like when you get home, and I don't know about you guys, but even after I've had a 12-hour day of doing football, from set up to tear down and getting home, I will still put on the late night, not any Pac-12 anymore, unfortunately, no Pac-12 after dark, really, but I will still get up, put on whatever late game there is, and watch some college football because, man, I still love it.
Yeah, I will. I'll do the same. Mostly because I don't really remember much of the games that I'm doing. Because you're usually thinking about either the next thing or you're fixing something you're not even watching. But yeah, it's such a beast. Because I think a lot of people, especially at our levels, and I mean really all levels, but like our stuff feeds everything else. So like everything I do goes to DV Sport. So got to talk to them and make sure they're good. Our feed goes to the video board, and we share cameras there. And I mean, even we were making a fan video or a student section video, and before our game, and it was like, man, we really need to like put more color in our melts and stuff. So like all areas kind of pull from a football show, whether it's on the video board or on the broadcast.
Yeah, even at Charleston Southern, going back to your point about feeding DV Sport, something I had to deal with, we had a separate fan cam, but we would feed our broadcast directly to the board. So that at least alleviated some of the issues. Fan cam would handle any kind of uh, promo stuff that they would have because otherwise it was just straight broadcast. And again, a lot simpler than when I go to the Citadel and do some work as I did this weekend. Promo and marketing and promo and broadcast are sharing the same camera, and man, that gets hectic. That gets hectic having two different people telling you two different things, and you're 15 seconds back from a break, and they're, hey, we still need you to be on the field. Well, no, I need these people for beauty shot, and man, that's a lot. That is a lot to do.
What I was saying in the group chat in that situation, we're lucky enough to I use DV Sport as kind of like a hub and like another router for me. Everything has to go there, so I'll split off of their stuff, and I'm able to give our marketing and promo. I give them our clean feed. So we still do plenty of shooting for them, but I also give them two cameras ISO'd out so that if we're working on a package or something like that, then and testing out replays coming back from break or setting up the beauty, then they're able to use some of our other cameras. And that director for the board show is one of our student directors, so he's able to kind of communicate the way that our camera people are used to and all that. So it's still hectic, and we still miss things, or I'm on comms yelling, "We got to get back! We got to get back!" But it is a little less hectic from what I think you described down at the Dell.
We normally, and now we've streamed football in the past. That's kind of a thing of the past. Luckily this year all 6 of our home games were picked up, including this past weekend. If we had to stream this past weekend, had Turner not picked it up, then we would have, we were going to hire Ross to come in and stream the game for us. But I mean, what you guys are talking about is something we go through with basketball quite often. We have a separate switcher in the back row that marketing has control of. They take probably 4 or 5 of our cameras. They have a couple replay feeds for halftime highlights and stuff inside the venue. But yeah, no, I mean, and we often have a promo cam that they have, that we have access to in case something cool happens. But um, generally it's kind of it's hard to split those shows. Like it really is. Especially when you have a really packed in venue show and you're doing linear, it's not fun.
Yeah, it's for the majority of my time at Charleston Southern, actually, I don't think there was a time in my time there that there was one game ever that was picked up linear. And so 95% of the broadcasts, if not more, that I did, I had to crew and run everything. And as the years went on, things expanded because that's become the nature of the beast. Everybody is trying to keep up with Joneses, and that's all fine and well. But man, like I think we are, depending on your level, Sue's, you have a robust student population. Dennis, you get picked up linear. Uh, Something I've noticed at the Citadel, something I noticed at Charleston Southern, and I think it's just a thing at the lower level schools is it is great to try to keep up with the Joneses, but we're getting to a point of saturation where I don't know if things are possible to an extent. You want your fan cams, you want 6 replay angles, you want the highest level broadcast you can. That is great, but I think there is a law of diminishing returns that is being reached in some of these places. It's very difficult at Charleston Southern on any given game day to book all these people. It's an issue that I've continuously run into that when in my time there. At the Citadel, they were having issues to the point where they were using cadets, which great. These are training opportunities for the cadets, but it it's just very hard to try to keep up with the expectations that goes into the traditional, I think now expected college football show at one of these smaller mid majors. And it I don't know that this is going to fall on anything but deaf ears when I say this, but based on my experience, man, it is. I don't know at what point is is too much, and everybody wants to put on a good show, but the more you put out there, the more there is an opportunity to for things to go wrong, and it's tough. It's just my general point of this part is it's tough, and it's broadcast isn't easy. None of us do this because it's easy. We do it because it's fun, but it's not easy. It can be easy, but it more often than not there's some problem that's some gremlin in the system, something
Well,
in the soup. But man, it is getting harder and harder, and we can keep pushing that envelope. But I think at a certain point you got to step back and say we just can't do this.
I think there's kind of two angles to that. There's obviously the technical side, which I'll get to in a second, but there's also budget. I mean, I only have, a group of 5 school. I only have so much money to spend for an entire year. Um, if I get picked up on linear, yeah, I want to do a really, 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 really good job, depending on, what game it is and everything. But is it worth hiring those 3 extra cameramen, or is it worth hiring an expression person, or I mean, at some point you have to think about the bigger picture, not just the one event, if that makes sense. Um, then the technical side. We have a broadcast engineer, or we have an engineer at UW, but he's not just worried about broadcast. He's worried about keeping the video boards running. He's worried about the LED tables and the tunnel board that we have, and the lights in the venue and the sound system and all this stuff. So, you know, it's really the onus is kind of on me and my staff, um, to set everything up and pre-test everything. And you guys know, you've both worked on trucks like I have. When you're on a truck, I do expression mostly as freelance. If I'm on a truck, then I get there at crew call. I go in and I sit down and I build the expression show, and I whatever the director needs, I build it, and I worry about that. Um, when you're in our situation, it's with our, and it's just our in-house crew before crew call. We're setting all the cameras up, we're building all the graphics, we're making sure the replay system is configured right with the right audio channels and this and that. So you you do get a it's hard to make sure everything is correct when you are literally worried about every last thing. So to Nick's point, you get to a point where making it work and making it clean supersedes making it fancy.
For sure. I ran into that. I mean, I texted you guys about I ran into that this weekend. I've taken myself out of our trailer, because I think I would be a disservice to everyone because I run around and fix other things. So with the addition of like the DV Sport in-game tablets, we got new video board, ribbon board, sound system, all that. I've taken myself out of it to kind of monitor. I can still talk to my crew the whole time, and there was an oversight on our part and probably my part with our audio. So our first quarter audio was not good. We didn't hear about it as much as I thought, but we heard about it. And it was just one thing. I'm like, yep, I had kind of messed with the EQ in testing just to see some things, or I was like literally by myself and playing music on my phone, so I wanted to hear it more or something, and it just didn't get changed later. And when we did the open, there wasn't 19,000 people there, so we got away with it. But then when there was 19,000 and our guys get a little louder trying to talk over them, stuff like that, that's where we ran into some issues and some overmodulation and stuff like that. And wasn't necessarily us trying to be fancy or anything, but it's just kind of to Nick's point, just the number of things that we're doing now, um, is just so many that we missed one, and now we know not to miss one. But um, and kind of talking about getting picked up linear, our Virginia game did not get picked up linear, so it's a chance for us to get better there, but also kind of hold ourselves back from wanting to do, oh, ACC's coming to town, let's add. We'll probably add sideline where we haven't really done sideline before. That'll help, but beyond that, we got to kind of still be like, okay, we had issues last show. Let's not try to throw the whole book at it because we still got to fix those issues first. So um, I'm saying that now and hoping in 2 weeks I continue saying that because I'm gonna get jacked up for the game, and hopefully we can at least lay our foundation first and then maybe add as we go.
I look forward to talking you down out of the group chat a couple times on something. Yeah,
Hey, I'm gonna do this.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I had my Gremlins. I did the uh Charleston Southern Citadel game. It was one I wanted to do even though I left, and thankfully we were able to make something happen, and was in the Charleston Southern trailer. I helped build out quite a bit, and um everything was as it should be, except I was not getting program out of my TriCaster for whatever reason. It was not feeding into my tech deck. It was not showing any signal. And so I had to figure out what to do because, man, like, you can't do a show without program. That's just not possible. I was getting it on the TVs, I was getting on the monitors. It was coming out of the HDMI ports. It was not coming out of any SDI ports. It was not. I don't know. I still haven't figured it out, but I was able to say, hell with it, sacrificed my B channel on my 3 play, made that program feed, and just fed everything out of that into our video board, into our encoder, into our DV Sport, whatever needed it. It came out of our B channel of our 3 play, and we just ran one channel of replay. And it's just one of those things you go, all right, how do I work around this and then come back to this? And that's just what we had to do on that day. And then I wasn't getting any signal out to the video board. And that's when I realized, well, on that case, I didn't have anything properly routed, and I was routing black video, and that's why every time the screen would test for live feed, it would be black. Well, that's probably why. So I swapped it over the program, and what do you know? That worked. But it is that theory that, I mean, that what we said is the more you're doing, the more something's going to go wrong, and that's part of what makes football such a beast. And like I myself, I'm dancing around some words here because you don't want to say bad things about football because it is fun, man. And when I was in the show, I had some of the most fun I'd had in a while, just directing and making it happen. But man, it is hard to do everything that leads up to that game, especially when you are one of the only people. And geez, and then when things go wrong, it is so easy to blame yourself and get hard on yourself about it, even when it is not your fault. Like I said, I did that Citadel game this past week, and some things just not did not go well. And Lucas, the guy at the Citadel, who I adore him. He is taking it really hard that didn't go well, but so much of it was out of his hands, and it's just so easy to fall into that trap of this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work. It's my fault. When you can justifiably step back and say, TriCaster's issue that it's not feeding out program, or that sort of thing. It's not always on you, but it's very easy to take some of this personal when there's so much that you have to do for this concept of football.
You know, it's also, I mean, in my opinion anyway, it's the hardest sport to broadcast. Just because of the sheer size of the playing surface and all the different things you have to cover. Um, and what's crazy is we had Brian on last week, and um, Brian and I have talked a lot over the past couple of years about broadcast standards for football in the Mountain West when somebody has to stream, and that's a lot of what led to um, us being on the side of maybe hiring a production company to do a football game for us instead of us doing it in house. It's what I mentioned before. Not only is it the in venue show here. I mean, we were sold out on Saturday. We've got another massive crowd, hopefully a sellout, probably a sellout coming this Saturday, and then we're on track for yet another one in 2 or 3 weeks or whatever it is when we play Air Force on September 28th. That's important to put on a good show for those people so that they come back. um, not just the streaming audience at home. Um, and what happens is my camera setup for a broadcast and for a video board show two completely different things. When I'm broadcasting, I have my three across the top. I have my low end zone, my high end zone, and I have my wireless handheld on the sideline. When I'm doing a video board show, I'm doing a single high cam because I'm taking the wings, the 25s from the truck. I have two low end zones because I'm taking high end zone from the truck. I'm taking the cart from the truck, and I've got three different handhelds just to do more crowd stuff, right? And so when I do that broadcast, and we only have three what I would call big lenses, or 55 buys. um so I have to go and I have to rent lenses, and that's not cheap to get the kind of lenses that you need to do football with, for broadcast standard anyway. And that kind of goes back to that thing I said about budget. Is it worth blowing half of your yearly freelance and rental budget on this one game?
Yeah, and kind of speaking to like both of what you just said in terms of taking it hard on yourself and budget. I remember one of the first linear shows that we hosted. We haven't done a linear show with CSN, but I'm the house for linear coming in, and it was during 2020, the COVID year, and we got all of our games on linear because like Coastal became the darlings. And that very first game was on like ESPN proper because some game got canceled and we got moved up. All that. I had like one converter I needed to like help bring a camera in for TV. I think it was just to bring the all 22, and that converter failed. And I was like, I was beating myself, but I was, guys, I had one thing to do for you. And the engineer or the remote ops producer said, dude, I have 10 of those. Like, one breaks every show, and I just ordered 5 more. Like, it's not a problem. And, like, so kinda speaking to both, like, I was like, I had one thing to do, and I couldn't even fricking do it for you. And he's like, "No, we're good. You just have 1. I got 10. We're good." And, like, we just can't do that. So if we wanted to go to, what ESPN did that week or any other subsequent weeks that they've been back, it would take so much either hiring a company to do it big or spending our own money, our own budget money to do it big. And it's like, all right, well, let's just do a really quality one with what we got and, make it right, do what we can, try to maybe add where you can, but not kind of blow the whole budget.
The other thing, guys, is that we haven't really talked about. I mean, budget's budget, right? For me, football kind of comes down to, it's also talent at each of the positions. Um, I can get by and do a 5 camera soccer broadcast or volleyball or really even basketball with a bunch of students because it's very, I'm not going to say it's self-explanatory, but I think those sports tend to, from the broadcast perspective, lay the story out a little bit easier than say football does. Football has so much nuance to it. I watched Sunday Night Football last night, and I'm getting ready to watch Monday Night Football tonight. Um, and you know, Sunday Night Football probably does this better than anybody. All of a sudden they'll come out of nowhere and they'll have a package on the left guard and how he's affecting the running game and how he's blowing up the nose tackle and that's allowing the running back to get to the second level of the defense. And Chris Collinsworth is there with his telestrator and all that stuff and makes your head spin. But you go, wow, like I just learned something, right? It's really hard when you have two students, even if they're two experienced students, back on replay. It's really hard to get that kind of nuance out of students. And that's where it comes down to, men. Like, I want a professional. If I'm doing football, I want a professional at almost every position because they just know what they're doing and they know what they're looking for. So I think that kind of comes into it too.
Yeah, and it's you can get away with, like you said, soccer or volleyball, having one really good person and then work with the others, work around the others to an extent. But man, like, you need your camera one tight. You need your camera two tight. You need a really good high end zone. Maybe like, okay, maybe you can work around a decent low end zone. And then you need to worry about a red hat and a green hat and then a sideline person. Like it's there is such a pomp and circumstance around what's expected now from football. And to Dennis's point, yeah, I had my rant earlier about how it's getting possibly too big for certain levels, but you still want to put on the best show possible for the people in attendance and watching because they deserve it. So while it may be growing too big, you still want to, within those confines, have those people in the position to succeed and be the best they can. And it is, like you said, it's taxing on what you're used to versus what you have to do now. I can't just work around people. I need people in their best places constantly for this. And you need to have that experience. You can't just put somebody green on that low end zone and say, hey, shoot and hope for the best. It's not possible.
Yeah, I had a I'm luckily now I have 2 full timers. So we had one producing. I was kind of producing, probably too much producing from where I was, not in the truck. Um, and our replay, he was a replay specialist at Cincinnati where he went to school. Um, but we had students everywhere else, and it was like I sat there after, and the the kid that directed for us, he's gonna be great. He already freelances and does his own stuff. He has his own little van and truck, but after the game, I said, "Man, why don't you know everything I know after 16 years of doing this? Like, figure it out. You should just know it already." Because I realized I was kind of hard on him. I was like, "Why wouldn't you cut to that, whatever?" And he was like, "No, I know. I know what you were saying." And I was just like, I was kind of thinking back, and I'm like, it also just takes rep after rep after rep, even just watching. I mean, I've been watching 18 years more of football than him. Never mind my experience in the field. Like I just watching the game and knowing what should be coming and what shows like Sunday Night Football have developed and evolved from in the past, where they were probably doing what we're doing now a long time ago, and then now it's this monster, and they can do those packages and have a guy that can put together something like that and find the nuances. And we may see it as someone that's been in the truck for a long time, but even these folks that have the talent and stuff, they just haven't got the reps yet. So it's hard for me. Well, it's not hard for me to be hard on them, because I still am, because I am who I am. But it's hard for me to like keep that going, because you got to understand that they just need more time.
Mhm. We had that's a really good point. We had our second soccer broadcast Sunday, and I mean, everybody's exhausted because we had Hall of Fame Friday, we had football all day Saturday, and it's the first game, and you never really know how all of the changes you made to improve the show are going to work until you do them, right? You can test it a million times, especially like on our click effect system. Like I know how it works, and I know that, you know, I push this button and then this button and then this button and then this button, and it works the way it's supposed to. But you never know, because we had a new person that's running our click effect system this year, and he did a great job. But you never know until you can tell them 100 times, hey, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and it makes sense for the way it's laid out for me on the screen because I'm the one that laid it out. But if he goes 1, 2, 4, 3 or 1, 3, 2, 4, it's not going to work the way it's supposed to. So you never really know. So there's that stress to it, right? But so I got in on Sunday morning and I said, you know what? I had a general crew list. And I said, let me mix this up. Let me try to see. Let me throw some people into the fire here. And statistically, it was a little fun for me, but I threw a new TD in there, someone who had never TD'd before. I tossed a new kid in his second game back on replay with one of our more experienced kids. Jordan from my staff, who has been our kind of expression specialist. She's very, very good at it. Um, I made her the font coordinator for a new student. And then I threw somebody new on camera, and I said, okay, let's just see what happens. And you know what? It was the best thing I could have done because it's reps. And the girl who TD'd after the show, I kind of went to her and said, hey, like, first time you've ever done that, that was pretty damn good, you know? And she's like, oh my God. I was like, did you have fun? And she goes, oh my God, can I do that again? Can I please do that again? And I told her, I said, yes. I said, probably not the next game, but you're going to do a lot more as the year goes on here. We're 3 events in of 70 or 80 or whatever it'll be. Um, so to Sousa's point, I mean, you get them reps where you can, and but I'm not going to throw her into that football situation. Now, I'll tell you what, if she does another 4 or 5 soccer games and does 3 or 4 volleyball games and knocks it out of the park, well, guess what? She's probably TD in a football game in November. And so that's in our position, like I know we're talking about talent and Sunday night football. And you know what? As I think about what I said before, it's easy for Sunday night football to ISO the left guard because they have 175 cameras.
Yeah,
you
that
know,
too.
yeah, like you can't expect that from our little 8 camera shows that we're doing here, which, not to belittle what we're all doing. I mean, there are plenty of FS1, FS2, ESPNU, ESPN2 shows that are 6, 8 cameras that are very, very good, right? But you don't get them that reps unless you give them the reps. That's the
Yeah,
other thing to go along with Sousa's point is, yeah, I get frustrated too, and kid makes a mistake, but then you got to think to yourself, man, this is like the third time they've done this. Like they haven't been doing this for 18, 20 years like I have.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Like third time
and and
ever.
I and I have to think back to one of the first times I was TDing, and Nick, you might remember this. We were at Davidson doing a College of Charleston basketball game back when we were doing the road games with our truck back then. And I'm TDing, and I don't know why. I just took camera 2 right in the middle of play.
Let's go.
Like we were on ESPNU, and I just took camera two right in the middle of play. And to this day, I could not tell you why I did it. So I had to think back. I have to think back to that once in a while and go, man, I was really bad at this at one point. You
Yeah,
know,
I still
I should give this kid a break.
I still remember after my first football game, I turned to my boss, Seth Montgomery, now at Indiana State, and I said, "Am I still here?" It's just it's that same feeling of I don't think I did that right, but you know, it's that opportunity and option to grow, and and it just it feels harder and harder to have that the more and more important that football becomes, and um, but that's also part of why we have the titles that we have, or in my case had to put those people in those best places and opportunities to grow and learn and get better and to the point of how these big shows go. I'm fortunate that I'm going to go up to UNC Chapel Hill this weekend and just A2 for their game against I think NC Central, and so I'm really curious to see how one of those one of those ones operates, because I have not been in a trailer or a control room for something like that, and I want to see how that is done and hear how that is done, and take that back to the next time I get a chance, which I think might be the 28th. I'll be back at the Citadel if they have me, and do that and see what I can and add to that, and if CSU keeps having me back, um, to do that, and so I'm really excited for that opportunity.
Yeah,
Yep.
you said something when when we started this episode. Like we don't do it because it's easy. We do it because it's fun. And as I've gotten older, I think when I was younger, doing the linear shows and doing ESPNU or doing AT&T Sportsnet, um, or any of that stuff, that was the fun for me. But I think now, as I've gotten a little older and I've done it a bunch of times, and not to say that I'm jaded toward it or that it's become routine, because I mean it's never routine because no two games are ever the same, which is what makes this job fun. But I've started to derive the enjoyment more from, you know, what can I learn? What can I learn here? And then what can I take back and teach my students? You know, we've mentioned this before. I'm very blessed to have worked a ton of games for the Denver Broncos, down in Denver, and work on their video board crew in various roles. But I think the best part of that for me is the relationships I've made, but it's also the things that I've seen other people do, directors that are much better than I am, much more experienced than I am, replay operators that have far more experience than me, camera operators, graphics operators, to be able to see that and just, you know, be a sponge and take one little drop here and another little drop there and bring that stuff back to Wyoming and make our in venue show better, make our streams better, or even something as simple as we had a discussion um last year at some point. I had two students that ended up running replay for football, and they're both pretty experienced, but I pulled them aside and I said, "Hey guys, we're gonna try something a little different today." I said, if I show two looks of a completion, instead of showing both looks from the snap and the drop back and the throw and all that stuff, I said, I want to show the first one full speed from the snap and the throw. So the second one, I want to be the tighter angle, and I want it just the catch. I don't want to see the throw. And it's just little things like that that I've picked up from the Broncos, or I've picked up from watching TV or something like that. And when you can bring that back, and a kid does it and they succeed, and you turn around and look at them, and you want to give them the little fist pump to say, "Hey, that was great." And you see like the little glint in their eye of, "Oh my god, like that looked really good and I did that." That to me is the fun part now. And that's what keeps me going every day, even though some days it is really stressful and really hard. And, we all look ourselves in the mirror once in a while and go, "Oh my God, why do I do this to myself?" But that's why that's the fun in it for me anyway.
One of the one of the things we've started doing now that we've started getting more and more. linear games here. And after that COVID year, now that they're letting us into the truck and stuff, is I try to bring in, um, you know, students that are helping me set up, because we still will set up like a little side video board show, and then we help ESPN running, our own cables or getting our stuff out of the way. So I'll bring in some select students that are super interested, and all of the remote ops folks have been really gracious with us, and they'll let the students sit in for, a couple drives or something like that. And most of the time it's a Remy, so like they don't really get to see it, but they flip all the comms on and put them on speaker so that the kids can really listen to at least what people are doing back in Bristol or Charlotte. And then just really look at the wall. I mean, it only might be 6 to 8 cameras, but they just look at the full wall and kind of see everything going, and seeing how replay gets queued up. And and I love seeing, because I'll be just taking a breath at that point, but you can see like them like pointing at different cameras or at replay or at graphics getting ready, and they're like either like, oh, we do it that way, or oh, I like that, like that's different. And it's really cool to see them do that, and then I learn a lot from it, or they'll bring something to me from their experience sitting with the remote ops person, because usually the remote ops person has been a TD or a director or an engineer or something, and they're able to explain everything really, really well. Um, and that's been really valuable for us to add, for them to see, the big leagues and the guys and girls that at the professional level do it. Um, and a lot of the same people from like Charlotte or Charleston will come up, and um, we see them every linear show. So they'll start taking students under their wings and stuff. It's really cool, and we it helps us add, just like you were saying.
I I think the best compliment I can get is when, um, there are times where we'll have students that will go utility for a TV broadcast. If I'm overstaffed and they need utility, I'll give them my students. Or there's times where, I've been lucky in my 11, 12 years here in Wyoming to make friends with a bunch of the director remote ops people from the Denver area, because they come up and do our games all the time. And so every now and again they'll let the kids come in the truck during the game, if they're not really working for us and they have a night off. um, the best compliment for me is when one of my students comes back from a situation like that and says, um, "Hey, wow, they do it just like us." And I smile and I
See,
go,
I told
"Well,
you.
well, there's that, but it's also more like, well, we do it like them. They don't do it like
True,
us."
true.
but but that to me is one of the best compliments that I can get. And you can see it kind of helps the engagement with the students too, when they realize, wow, I'm like actually learning how you're supposed to do this. Albeit probably on a much smaller level, but I'm learning. And that's when they start to get really excited that, you know, they might end up in a truck one day, running replay or running graphics or even directing or producing.
And Suze, you can speak to these guys too, but I feel like the Tupelo Honey guys, the Tupelo Raycom, whatever they were and are now, they were always great about letting people come in and sit with certain people if they were interested in positions, and kind of watch over their shoulders and pick their brains. And that is also a nice part of these professionals is, and it's something that to an extent we get to at a certain point, is we have our systems down, and it's nice and loose, and we can take questions, we can answer questions, we can, it's not just going to be watching and hey, be quiet while we do this. It's yeah, oh yeah, go ahead, ask me questions while I do this. Hold on, let me run this replay, or hold on, let me throw up this graphic. They're really gracious with their time, and I feel like that's any of these guys, because they see these people are here wanting to learn more about this, so I'm going to teach them because there's a genuine desire to know.
Yeah, the Tupelo folks are great. Even during the, I mean, it was not a big truck by any means, but when we did the D3 national championship for track, um, we had a producer from Tupelo come, and he was great. We had two guys, yeah, two guys in the room with him down at Doug Shaw Stadium at Myrtle Beach High, and I mean, there's plenty of downtime in a track event, and they were just talking, and he was giving them contacts um, and knowledge and stuff, because he had come through like us. I mean, he was at Upstate. Went to a P4 school, and then now is with Tupelo, and yeah, they're great with their time, and I mean, I think that's really the best way for people to learn and for the industry to keep getting folks. Really, I mean, it's the reps we talked about, and like actually just learning from someone that's willing to give you their time. That's huge. And it doesn't have to be like a mentorship down the road. It can just be when they come through town. Yeah, I remember you. Yeah, 2 years ago we were here, and I'm back, and oh, you know more. Like now you're interested in replay. All right, let's talk about that. It's really cool, and it's the way for kids to get, and I mean honestly, me to get more engaged. Like you said, Dennis, like they're like, oh, there is a path, and they told me their path. Like when Ryan from Tupelo said, yeah, I did this at Upstate. They were like, oh, we're bigger than Upstate. Like, yeah, like there's a way to this. You got to put your time in and pay your dues, all that nonsense. But there's a path.
But, and paying it forward's everything. I mean, it's funny because he's literally here at my house right now. One of my great mentors, Steve Cooney, you both know him. Um, I just I got the job at College of Charleston, and my boss said to me one day, he goes, "Hey, we were talking, and it came out that hockey's my favorite sport, and that I played hockey when I was younger." And he goes, "Oh," he goes, "I got a guy for you. He's Canadian. You'll love him." And so I met Steve, and I don't know why. I still don't know why, but he decided to teach me everything he knew, and here I am. And then my other great mentor, Jerry Wetzel, same thing. Jerry came through Charleston and was doing a CBI game, maybe. I don't remember how I honestly don't remember how exactly we met. I know he was in Charleston doing a game and just started talking. He was directing it, and we just started talking. And for some reason, we kind of hit it off and kept in touch a little bit. And then, 8 years ago, I am, wandering around the stadium here in Laramie, and didn't even realize he was tech managing the game for CBS. And our SID at the time, Tim, goes, "Hey, the tech manager wants to talk to you." I said, "All right," which is not out of the ordinary. And come around the corner, and here's Jerry. And, you know, it was, yeah, it's funny how you randomly meet these people that affect your life and your career. And, like Sue said, that's how we keep this going is you find some kid that might be 20, 30 years younger than you. I'm not quite there yet. I'm closer to the 20 than I am the 30 right now, but you find some kid that's 20 years younger than you, and you see that they have that twinkle in their eye that maybe you once had, where they look at the switcher and think it's the coolest thing of all time, and they want to know what every single button does. So you sit them down and teach them what all the buttons do. You let them press them all. And that's what we do, right?
It's something that I'm not going to claim to be the foremost bastion of knowledge in any of this stuff, but I've got rings if you count me open. I've got rings in my trunk. I've done this for years. I've done this for a bit, so I know some things. And so it's like Lucas down at the Citadel. It's his first full time job. He's never really been in a position to tackle football before. I just said, "Man, let me help you out." I, I'm not going to say I know everything, but I know some things, and I can be a big service to you. Let me help you, and let me let me guide you a little bit. Let me, I guess, mentor you if you want to say that. But and whoever Charleston Southern hires, to an extent, as long as I'm in town and free, happy to say, hey, here's how I can help you. Here's what I can do to make this easier on you, to give you some ideas of what you can do to make things better and smoother for you. It's I will say I'm a resource. I know more than somebody that's just starting because I've just done so much volume, and that's fine. So let me be the one to help. I'm doing my best to pay it forward now while I go to hopefully start growing these bigger events for me like UNC this weekend, and pick up stuff from there that I can grow myself with, but then help these people grow with, and everybody just benefits.
I think the two biggest things that you can do, you can be, is one, don't be don't be too big to give help, and two, don't be too big to ask for help. And sometimes that help that you ask for might come from someone younger than you with less experience. You know, we talk about this all the time with the NDI and IP and stuff like that. And it's funny to talk to some of the older TV guys that still remember beta, you know. Um, it's funny to talk to them about IP, and you kind of try to explain to them well, don't you do this and this? And I go, no, I've got a little thing that sits on top of my camera, and I plug an Ethernet cable into it, and boom, it's in my control room. And they're kind of like, wow, like we don't do that, and so sometimes, sometimes some of the guys are like, hey, kind of walk me through this IP thing, and there's newer stuff that is coming out that the the kids, and I'll call them kids because they're still kids, 18, 19, 20. They see it and they go, oh, this is really cool, Dennis, you should try this. And I look at it and go, man, I didn't even know that existed, but hell yeah, I'm gonna try it. Like, thank you for the advice there.
Yeah, and chances are they have the technology, the the technological know-how to just go ahead and plug in an NDI converter and or or system and set it up within 5 seconds, and it would have taken you looking through a manual on a PDF another 20 minutes to do it, and you're just like, oh well, thanks, man, appreciate it.
I probably would have printed it and highlighted it and
Time for putting on
done
your
all that.
readers. Yeah,
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 exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. No, they just seem to be, like, ready to go with that stuff. Like, it just like you said, like, it's just like, "Well, yeah, of course that works. That's how that works." And I'm like, "Oh, well, I had to learn about it and, read back on it and all that," but they, it seems to be intuitive for some of them.
Well, boys, I got a question for you. What you got coming up?
What do I have coming up? We're in the middle of a soccer game right now. Um, I am I'm not doing it. They're doing a great job. Josh and Santana are. We're trying to let go a little bit, go home some more. Then we have 6 more events this week. We decided to play a lot of home soccer matches on the same week of a volleyball tournament. And then we're getting ready for that Virginia game. The redemption arc is laid out in front of me. It's like WWE. Like you can see what SummerSlam's going to be. Like what's going to happen. Well, I hope what should happen. So get ready for that. Take on. I mean, it should be a sellout, all that. So we gotta make sure we're good on the sound side of things. Anything extra that our AD wants, but yeah, focusing on that on my end, and then the full timers and students are gonna crush the other sports.
So basically, you're saying we have Alex, Cody Rhodes, Souza, and
Yeah,
with us,
it
and
is.
you're about to finish the story, right?
Yeah, we got to finish the story.
Can smell what the Suze is cooking, baby.
Um, we've got a pretty light week, but a big week. We've got BYU at home this weekend for football. The ancient rival for Wyoming, back from the days when they were both in the WAC and both in the Mountain West. First time BYU's played in Laramie since 2009, so a very very long time. Um, so that should be fun. Like I said, we're expecting a massive crowd, so it should be a lot of fun. Soccer on Sunday, and then next week's pretty busy. We have a soccer volleyball doubleheader Thursday, which I'm pretty excited about. Soccer's got Oregon State, and then volleyball is the first day of a 4-team tournament. So we have soccer at 4, volleyball at 6. So it's going to be the first time that we deploy both control rooms in the same day. So that's kind of exciting for me to see that all those changes and hours spent building things this summer work. Um, and then volleyball, they play Friday, and then we host Utah on uh, on
Ooh.
Saturday. So and then two of our creative folks are going to Denton, Texas, with football. They play North Texas. So our staff will kind of be spread out, spread a little thin, but should be a pretty rewarding week next week, and I'm definitely looking forward to it.
And if you want to learn more and you haven't listened to it yet, learn more about Dennis's control rooms, go ahead and listen to last week's episode with Brian Tripp. They touch on things a little bit and give you a little more insight about the control room process that Wyoming has. And I'm sure we'll talk about that more going forward. But just a little peek.
I was gonna say we'll have to talk about my Mountain West cross country extravaganza that we're planning in late October at some point.
Jeez.
That'll be pretty fun. Air Force is hosting it, and I'll just tease it by saying that there may or may not be 2 drones in the air during the race. So that'll be kind of fun.
Laying down the gauntlet, drone gauntlet.
Hmm.
Yeah. As for me, like I said, I'll be at UNC this weekend. I got a Charleston River Dogs playoff game tomorrow night. I will be directing. I edit 2 podcasts on the side, and one of them is a hockey movie called The Late Game. It was produced and budgeted and funded and directed and starred in by friends of mine, and it is debuting in Canada Tuesday night or on Tuesday on Apple. So if you're in Canada listening, which we have a few listeners in Canada, not just Steve Cooney, tell him I said hi. Not just Cooney, but we have some listeners in Canada. Please check it out. It's about a night at the a late beer league hockey pickup or beer league game called The Late Game. So give that a listen. Listen to the podcast, watch them too. And it's really all I've got going on. Just trying to figure out what the rest of the month holds, and got them some things in the works, and we'll see where they go from here. Yeah,
We're in the thick of it, boys, and it's so it begins.
and it's just getting thicker, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take it how you will. I think that's the perfect time to end this episode. For Dennis Trapani, Alex Souza, I'm Nick Case. This has been the Sports Prod Pod. Good night, Satellite.